coach, and then we'll talk about National Signing Day, obviously last week, and preview the weeks ahead, and a couple questions on Kansas on Saturday. So whenever you're ready, Coach.
Yeah, obviously we've had a lot going on with signing day and coming off a big, very intense game with KU. We talked to our players after that game about needing to let it sit a little bit, let it hurt, and then wake up the next day and find a way to get better. So I think we had a pretty good balance of that since the game. And then now we're looking ahead to 3 games in 7 days. So the preparation for these upcoming games is a little bit quicker, a little bit shorter in terms of how many days we're working on our opponent. So it'll be an opportunity for us to show some growth in turning around scouting reports.
Questions?
Coach, with the signing class and Natalia in particular coming from NASA, just can you walk through a little bit of the process of recruiting her and just how excited you are about her?
Yeah, man, Natalia's recruiting was interesting because she had a relationship with almost everyone on our staff. We had recruited her from previous institutions, obviously coming from Knoxville. I've known about her for several years now, been able to watch her grow in the last few years, and super excited about her. She brings a tenacity, a competitiveness, and a lot of fire, and I think that will be much needed for our program.
Coach, what were some of the emphases that you were looking for in this 2026 recruiting class?
Yeah, we wanted some size. I think you could see that really quickly. We bringing in Chloe Fords, Cecily Brandmore, and Ellie Muller, and all 3 of those players bring some size and length. Hopefully, give us some depth in some positions down low, and love the ability that they also have to be able to stretch the floor. Love their versatility. We definitely wanted to address some athleticism on the perimeter as well, and we did that with both Natalia and Jada. So I think we have some players coming from really elite programs. They know how to win. They expect to win. I think that's really important. We didn't look into that. That's by design. And I tell you what, I'm super excited about this class.
With a 5-player class, I think if all of your eligible players return, that puts you right at 15 for next year's roster. So how do you weigh the difference of wanting to build through the high school ranks and recruiting this way versus through the portal?
Yeah, I think every year is different, but we understand that our high school recruiting is going to be very important to building a successful program. That's what we're going to have as a foundation, and I think that we were able to go out and do just that with this signing class. The portal is still a valid option where you need it, but we were able to address a lot of things with the freshman class that we wanted to address.
Did it feel like the timeline of the recruiting process was a little shorter for you because of when you got started here? How did that play out versus previous signing classes at other stops?
The recruiting is fluid. It changes, and you can go back and look at players that you've signed that you recruited for years, and then you can go back and look at players that you signed that you recruited for weeks. And there's no exact science to it. I think the biggest thing for us is identifying who will be a good fit for us, and then building a strong relationship and finding that trust early on. And sometimes that takes a long time to do. Sometimes, for us, we can get in there and start recruiting people, but we were late for some kids, and for some kids we were right on their timeline. So I think it worked out very positively for us.
Back at the Kansas game a couple days later, just some of your kind of lasting takeaways from that one.
Yeah, I think defensively, I thought we missed some executions that we needed to be able to see. We had a scouting report. I didn't think we executed the scouting report as well as we've done, maybe. So I'd like to see us be able to do that a little bit better. I thought we could have had a little bit more urgency with our transition defense. And offensively, although we scored a lot, we scored a lot of points, we left a few opportunities out there, whether it was a missed execution or a turnover. Or just not comprehending what we needed in that moment. So it was a high-level game. I thought it was an intense game the entire 40 minutes. I thought we competed, and I thought we had a pretty good mindset. I love to see the competitiveness, so I think we can find some growth there.
When you talk about the scouting report element and then this pretty compact stretch of games in just a matter of a few days here, like, how much of a challenge opportunity is that to work on that, implementing the scouting report?
Yeah, it's exactly what I challenged our team. I think that's one area we can get better at, and we'll try to structure things for our players in practice to allow them to get better, to challenge them in practice, to put them in game-like situations. But ultimately, when it is game time, they've got to have focus. They have to be able to apply what they've learned in that moment when things are going really fast. And I think a big part of that is our communication. We've really been challenging our players to find a better level of communication.
Coach, when you talk about that game being so competitive and an intense, environment, how advantageous is it to have that kind of game this early in the season?
I think it was a great game for us to have. Obviously, you don't draw it up and you're happy about the loss. You don't do that. But in terms of having that game on our schedule where it is, I think it was really good for our team. I think it gave our staff a really clear picture of where we are, where we need to grow. I think it showed some little grit and a little toughness that we needed to see. And it hopefully it motivates us and gets our players excited about the improvement that we can have.
Coach, sorry, go ahead.
After that game, you also talked about how good it was to see the positive contributions from everybody that played in that game. Just at this point, 4 games in, how are you feeling about the depth of your roster and what you're seeing from everybody that's, getting minutes?
Yeah, well, we finally have 10 available. That's not a huge number to have just available players, but I think what we saw in this last game was that everyone that stepped out on the court was able to contribute in some way. I think that's great for them. I think it can be a little bit more added motivation in practice. We talked about their minutes, whether it's 2, 20, 40, doesn't matter what they are, they're important. And I think our players could see that from this game. I think it was a great example of how each possession, each play, each action matters. Regardless of who you are, you've got to be able to contribute and play.
Coach, Sanaya made her return in that KU game. Have you gotten a chance to talk with her and see how she's feeling after making her debut?
I think first off, she's been chomping at the bit. She's been so excited about getting out there and playing, and I'm really proud of her coming out and honestly playing under control and playing with great energy. That's what she's going to give us. She's going to give great energy. She's going to give us a physicality defensively that we just don't have anywhere else. And she gives us another opportunity, another ball handler out on the court. So, playing point for us, giving us some depth there, allowing me to move Shannon back to the wing a little bit more is going to be good for us. I think we have to be a little patient with her that, that's a big old playbook that she missed, a few weeks of live action and a very lengthy playbook. So I'm really proud of actually how she handled it, and we're going to continue to give her some extra work as she gets back in and gets more minutes.
Along the same line, is there any update on Hannah and Sydney and kind of getting the roster back to relatively full strength?
No changes. No changes. We're still kind of day to day with those two, and would love to add to our depth in terms of our numbers. But when we've got 10, we'll go with the 10 we got.
What'd you learn, I guess, most about your paint and post defense, especially without Jordana in the game, and what needs to, I guess, improve or change?
Yeah, I think we have to be a little bit. Find a little bit more urgency to guard early. I think when you're outmatched, you can't be late to the party. You can't be delayed because you're already down, right? So for us, I think seeing things, understanding things, where we are, personnel and matchup wise, and guarding early, that allows us to maybe be a little bit more physical, because we're gonna have to play a little bit more physical when we just don't have the size. And we may have to be creative as coaches, may have to figure some things out to help our mediums play big.
Any more questions? All right, thank you guys.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Coach.